And we're back. Ellie 2.0 radio. I am thrilled, just absolutely thrilled for the big interview. We have my dear friend, as well as business, aficionado, Katie White. Katie, welcome back to Ellie 2.0 radio. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Well, I am thrilled to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
So, Katie, let me do a little quick synopsis. Okay. So, you were originally on this show back in September of 2022. And I had you on because you were at the cusp of starting a jewelry business. All right.
Mhm.
And that jewelry business is an outgrowth of something incredible that happened to you. And so I built up the audience a little bit. Tell them what was that incredible thing and how did it come about that you got into the jewelry business?
All right. So in May 15th, 2022, I had a heart transplant at Mayo Clinic, St. Mary's Hospital in Rochester. And leading up to my transplant, I lived in St. Mary's on Nassau Tower 6 for 3.5 months. So I tried to stay as busy as I could. And there's a program called The Art at the Bedside there. And they brought in polymer clay, which is just clay.
Okay.
And she said, you can make jewelry with it if you want. You can make anything with it. So I started researching how to make earrings, and the rest is history. I started Katie White Designs about 5 days after having a heart transplant in my hospital bed.
And I tell you, so, off radio, you and I are dear friends.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about your business, and I've told you, and I'm going to tell the whole world this, entrepreneurs are born, they're not made. And thank God, because before this, you were an RN, up in Grand Marais. Okay. You didn't have this artistic bend. And then suddenly you got a second chance at life, and you're taking it, not only living it, but you're also taking it from business perspective, right?
Yep.
I just love it. Okay.
Very
And
cool.
so Katie White Design started about 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah. I think officially September of 2022. So we're coming
Okay.
up on 2 years.
On 2 years. Give us the snapshot. Where did you start with the business, and where is it today as a consequence of your hard work?
Oh, okay. So I started selling earrings off my Instagram page, and I was shipping boxes out from the Gift of Life house. It's the recovery house I lived in Grand Marais. So I set up a studio there and shipped out. I think I sold about 100 pairs of earrings in the first 3 months after surgery.
Okay.
And then I got into my first store, which was La Rose & Co. right here over in Chanhassen, Minnesota. And since then have grown the business, and I'm in 23 locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And I also sell earrings every weekend at the Minneapolis Farmers Market downtown.
Okay. And you also sell online, right?
I also sell online, correct.
All right. So hold on a second. Because I have your earrings, I want all the audience to know that Ellie Krug loves Katie White Design. So hold on. I'm going to pull back the headphones and show my earrings.
Oh, the hearts.
Whoops.
You have the hearts on. They're so cute.
I do.
Oh, that makes me happy.
I have the little red perfect hearts that many in my family have already bought, and so,
Yep.
All right, now, before we go any further, because I'm like a huge supporter of you and your business, if somebody wants to get online and find out about your work and maybe buy something, where would they go?
So it's katiewhitedesigns.store. And you can just Google, Katie White Designs, and it should bring you right to my page.
Okay.
I ship all throughout the U.S. I've sold to most states in the U.S. so far, which is really cool. And I have kind of a core collection on my website of they're handmade, they're lightweight, they're hypoallergenic, they're great if you have really sensitive ears. So there's a really nice collection online that you can check out 24/7.
And the cool thing is you make many of these pieces of jewelry in your kitchen oven, right?
Yes. Yeah, they're baked in our kitchen oven. Yep, that's correct. I know, you think that's so funny, and I love it.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious.
It is pretty funny. People are
Yeah,
always surprised.
and you've grown. I mean, you now have a part-time employee working with you. Do I have that right?
3 part-time
3
employees.
part-time employees. And you're creating you're, job creator, you're a small
Yep,
business owner.
yep.
Okay, I am so proud of you. I am
Thank
so
you.
thrilled for you, and I'm, most of all thrilled that you're still alive. Okay, but
Me too.
when when we had you on the show the last time, we talked about, you know, um, getting that second chance, and you going off and living this form of authenticity that you really apparently didn't have a full grasp of by any stretch until you're on that hospital bed waiting for your heart. Um, but today, I want to kind of expand a little bit and talk and kind of theme in a little bit about what America is right now,
Mhm,
maybe how it relates to you as a small business owner, and maybe how are you feeling about the political climate, like as of Sunday, you know. So let's take the first approach because the Republicans are
mhm.
this supposedly this big party of business and looking out for businesses and all that type of stuff. How are you viewing the country right now as a small business owner?
Well, um, it's an interesting question. I feel like I am very lucky to live in the state of Minnesota because generally Minnesotans, we vote Democratic. I mean, historically, but also as a small business owner, Minnesotans are very loyal to fellow Minnesotans and to small businesses. And feel very fortunate to live in a state that does support our small businesses and does shop small and does host so many different events that people can come and put their dollars right back in the local economy. I think that's super, super important because you can buy earrings anywhere, you can buy anything anywhere, but you know, buying them on Amazon isn't going to help anyone locally.
Well, not only, but Katie, I mean, let's agree. I mean, your designs are unique. You know,
Well,
we've
thank
got
you. I think so.
we've got listeners, of course, who can't see, but you've got kind of the '50s retro look going with cat lady glasses,
Yep, and the
and you
pom poms.
and you have big pom pom earrings
Yeah.
hanging off with your hair back up in a beehive.
Yep.
You know, I mean, and then is the necklace around your neck also one of your pieces?
Yep. So I have kind of these new gold and silver necklaces with little heart pendants, which seems appropriate. And then I have,
Absolutely.
yeah, and then I have necklaces that are have polymer clay stones. So they're stones, but they're made of clay.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, and so, you know, um, uh, I I think we have to give you a lot of credit because your designs are I mean, your designs, people just, I mean, they love them. I mean, as soon as
thank
I
you.
saw the heart earrings, I told you I wanted a pair, and then I told my sister-in-law, and then she's ordering them for a bunch
I
of
know.
people.
That was so amazing.
All right, so that's great to hear your approach and how you feel that Minnesota is supportive. I mean, you and I have in common that I live in Minnesota, as my audience
Yep.
has heard, because I have legal rights here that I would not have in any of the surrounding
Right.
states as it exists right
Yep.
at the moment. Now, let's talk about what happened on, Sunday,
Hmm.
and how were you feeling before President Joe, made his announcement about ceding the race to Kamala. And then how do you feel about Kamala as what looks like is going to be, who looks like is going to be the Democratic nominee?
Yeah. I was honestly really hoping that President Biden would step down. I feel like it's kind of time to pass the torch to a new generation. And I'm honestly worried. I mean, I don't feel like it's a great idea for someone in that age group to be running the country again with some of his health problems. And when you have such a strong woman like Kamala in the wings, why would you not pass the party on and try to make it stronger? So I was very happy that he stepped down and passed the torch, and I'm really excited about Kamala.
Well, and you are, so you're a millennial, right?
Yes,
You're within the
yes,
millennial range.
an
And
elder millennial, but yes.
well, we could talk about where I am in the boomer range.
Right. Yeah.
So, and how do you? I mean, your cohorts that other millennials.
Mhm.
What sense do you have from them about how they viewed before President Joe stepped down, and maybe how it's changed since then?
I think, well, I have friends all over the board politically, and so I know, not to talk about politics with some of my friends because I wanna keep our friendship. But my friends that we do have the same, political views, we were all really concerned because we just thought there's no way we're gonna win if Joe Biden stays as a nominee. I mean, is he even gonna be able to handle the schedule even
Yep.
leading up to the election? And so there's a lot of relief that I've heard and a lot of excitement about Kamala Harris. So that's kind of the sense that I'm getting from the people that are in my age group that share my political views.
Okay. Okay. Now, one of the one of the things that the Republicans have done
Mhm.
is Trump selected J.D. Vance as his running mate. J.D. Vance is on the record as saying that all the Democratic Party is run by a bunch of single women who are cat ladies. And he's talked in the past, both in I think believe in his book as well as on air about that it's important that there be children born to families that are married. And my, what I'm taking away from that is that it's, only families with children are the ones that really matter to the Republicans because part of that is supposedly God's plan about, populating the world and or America. And, inferentially, it's about white people having children.
Mhm.
And so, and if it's okay, I mean, you and I talked about this coming in.
Yeah.
You're married, but you don't
Mhm.
have children.
Right.
How does that messaging affect you? I mean, what does
Yeah.
it say to you?
Well, first of all, I know a lot of single cat ladies and they're amazing. So I I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, who cares? Second of all, I mean, I I I've tried to have children many times in many different ways and it didn't work out. So, um, I mean, I guess over the years I've kind of built up a sort of a wall to those kind of comments, but it's so hurtful because it's so ignorant. And, just like abortion saying no one should have an abortion. Well, there's 8 million reasons why someone has an abortion. It's not just one.
Right,
And there is 8 million reasons why someone doesn't have a child. It might be by choice, it might be by not choice. I don't know.
right.
But what
Well,
is that? That doesn't define a person.
even Trump, has criticized Kamala because she doesn't have any birth children. You know,
Yeah, I don't
and
get that. I
you
mean,
know,
it's so ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. And
It's just yeah.
but I mean, do you think it's ridiculous enough that on top of abortion, okay,
Yeah,
abortion rights, that
yeah.
that women hearing those kinds of comments coming from white men, you know, is even more something to motivate women to go to the polls and vote for Kamala.
God, I hope so, because I was just talking to my mom about that. My mom is 73, and she just said, "I can't believe it feels like we're going backwards." You know, it's like her generation worked so hard to get women these rights and to kind of propel the world forward, and now how are we going backwards in the span of just a few years? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really hope that, the millennials, the Gen Zers, will get out and vote, because this this is their world. I mean,
Their
whoever
future, their
gets in,
future,
what's that?
their future.
It's their future, and it's their children's future, and they should care about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hope so. I hope, having another woman run for office will just get everyone out to vote. You know,
I'm hoping so too.
yeah.
I'll tell you parenthetically, I just saw earlier today um, via Tom Hartman, who happens to be a progressive um, commentator, a statistics that's going to drop next week from the CDC about infant mortality. So you're formerly a registered nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that America, United States, has the highest infant mortality of all the industrial countries in the world, but that we had been steadily driving down the rate of infant mortality for the last 20 years. Apparently, and Brett, you might want to know this too. I mean, you might want to use this somewhere. Apparently, the infant mortality rate in the last year has ticked up 3%.
Well, that it tracks.
3%.
Yeah.
You've got more people, having babies that they don't want in circumstances that are not healthy for either the moms or the babies, and the babies are dying.
Yep. And I worked as a nurse, like you had said. I worked for 7.5 years in an emergency room in rural Minnesota. And I can tell you that it doesn't make sense to restrict abortions when you're not going to increase, you know, help like
Healthcare
Medicare,
access. Yeah.
like
Healthcare access.
Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, access, because people cannot support these children. I've seen it again and again and again. The county I lived in at the time, like 30% of the county was on food assistance. And, um, you know, bringing in extra children, because even if you can't afford to raise the child, but you're not allowed to not have the child, doesn't make sense, especially if you're not going to support that mother throughout the child's life.
Yep. Yeah. And of course, the Republicans just are not of the view that that's considered government handouts, you know, and
Right. It doesn't track. I mean, it does not track.
no, yeah,
When you've seen the reality of something, when you've seen the reality of these people's lives, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't track.
well, Katie, marginalization, I mean, they're not all that, they don't really put two and two together. I
Right.
mean,
They
my
don't.
own personal irony about all of that is that, you know, it's illegal for me now to go use the women's restroom at the Salt Lake City International Airport. I'm supposed to use the men's restroom. And of course, as you and I have talked offline, I love men.
I do.
Why why would a woman want me in the restroom with her husband? Not that anything would ever
Exactly.
happen. No, not that everything would happen, of course, but not that I would ever even do that. I mean, even
Right.
go to a men's restroom. I mean, I'm on record, Salt Lake City Police, just so you know.
Just so you
Next.
know, let her go in the women's room.
That's right.
Gonna be peeping.
I'm gonna break the law. If you want to sit outside and wait for me,
Go
just
for
do
it.
it.
Well, Ellie, all this, it's fear-based. It's all fear-based.
It is.
All of this rhetoric and the spreading of false information, I think it all just boils down to fear, which is sad.
Oh, of course. I mean, certainly fear about transgender people and
Yeah.
fear that if we allow women too much power, that ultimately, because there are more women than men in the country, that ultimately the women will,
Take
you know,
over.
yeah, they'll control the men. And of course, you and I both know, and I certainly understand this now, post gender transition, women are kinder, gentler. They're
Mhm.
peacemakers. They're mediators. The very first thing that Kamala Harris said, yesterday after, you know, meeting with Netanyahu from Israel
Mhm.
was about the horrible suffering, of the Palestinian people as a
Mhm.
consequence of the war. I mean, yes, Israel has the right to defend itself, all that stuff, but my God, they've killed nearly 40,000 people,
Yeah.
of which, a good third of those are just children,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
well, Katie, what's next for you? I mean, when is Katie White Design going to go public? When are you start offering stock?
Oh my. That's a mm, maybe part of the 5-year plan, huh?
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. But,
Um,
but it's been extraordinary. I mean, it's just
it's
2
been
years.
extraordinary. It's a lot of hard work. Like, it's not, people think, "Oh, you make cute earrings. It must be just so relaxing every day." And it's like, not really. I mean, I love what I do and it's not work, but it is something you have to show up and work at every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and audience members, Katie's townhouse is located, um, 200 yards, 100 yards from the back of my house, and I
Mhm.
can from my sunroom, I can see your workspace.
That's right, I'm looking
Um
at your sunroom right now.
There you go. And your light, is always on. You're
Mhm.
always, working at it. And of course, you and I both understand that if you're going to run your own business, that's just the way it works. You just
Yep,
have to work.
you
Work
just have
for it,
to work.
you
Yeah,
know. And then someday, maybe you get the rewards of that. So maybe,
yep,
I've always had a business where it was just dependent on Ellie Krug, but you make widgets,
yep,
and you can and other people can make widgets for you.
that's
And,
right, yeah,
and then maybe you can sell a widget business, because
yep,
it's your imagination, but you've set the die, and then maybe somebody else might want to come along and buy it. So I
yeah.
hope that happens for you. I hope you have the option for that to happen. In the
Well,
in
it's exciting to think about all the options and the opportunities, and the sky's the limit, so
the last thing I'm gonna say, Katie, is you are the epitome of the American dream. You really are. You
thank
know,
you, Ellie.
be able to, first of all, modern science
Mhm.
saved your life, and so did a donor,
Yep,
right?
yep, yep.
We always need to acknowledge that there was a donor. Um, but but you decided that you were gonna pivot, and you have pivoted in a way that's remarkable, you know? And I'm just really proud of you, if that's okay if I say that. And,
Thanks, Ellie, of course it's okay, and I
okay.
think well, first of all, a woman named Kaylee saved my life, that was my donor's name, and I will always be grateful to her family. And second of all, it's just I think a big part of the American dream is to keep going and to keep working, and everyone is gonna have, roadblocks and stumbling points in their life, and you have to get out of bed the next day and keep moving.
Hmm,
And that's the only way to do it. That's the
yep,
only way I did it. It was
yep.
literally one step at a time.
Persistence is key.
Persistence. Yeah.
Well, Katie White, thanks for being on Ellie 2.0 radio again. It's great to see you again. Of course, I might see you even later today.
Right.
But but thanks. Continue to do what you do, all right?
Thank
And
you so much, Ellie.
And in 2 years, we'll have you back again, and you'll give us the report about, employing 20 people,
And
So
stock options.
and stock options. Okay. All right. Well, thanks so very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ellie.
Okay. All right, everyone. I've been talking to Katie White, who is the owner and visionary of Katie White Designs. Just go Google Katie White Designs or Katie White Jewelry, and you'll find her. Katie White, White. And so, all right, when we come back from the break, we'll do my C block where I'll talk about my work as an idealist. We'll be back in a second.
These are days you remember.
All right, here we go.
Hello, humans. Hello, humans. It's me, Ellie Krug. Welcome back to Ellie 2.0 radio/podcast, where we focus on idealism and idealists, humans actively working to make a positive difference in the world. And wow, do we have a great show for you. The big interview is with Katie White, a small business owner who I first had on the show in September of 2022. Now, Katie, she's going to talk about her business and how it's grown. She's an entrepreneur, which dear to my heart. Maybe that's not so close to idealism, but I think it may be. But regardless of that, she's also millennial. I'm going to hear from her about how she's feeling right now about the political landscape in America. Okay, and so she's going to be the big interview, and then as usual, we have my C block at the end. But here in the A block, let's talk about this week's featured idealist, someone who changed the course, literally the course of history, because of his idealism. I am talking about our president, Joe Biden. I mean, audience, how the world has changed from the last time you heard my voice, at least live. President Biden's decision on Sunday to drop out of the 2024 presidential race, and then his subsequent endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris, will go down as one of the greatest acts of political selflessness in the history of American politics. One of the absolute greatest acts of self-sacrifice, of selflessness for the good of the country. I'll talk more about that in a second, but first I want to share a bit of research that I did on President Joe, courtesy, of course, of Wikipedia. I did that. I wanted to go and just, we hear about President Joe, we hear about his accomplishments, we hear about his, rise from the Senate all the way up to presidency, vice president, presidency. But I wanted to see what's in his background that maybe may have given us a clue as to his character, because it was his character on Sunday. It was his character that caused him to say, I'm not going to run. Of course, I could devote 5 shows to President Joe's story, but let me share a couple of things that may lend to how he became so idealistic. One important thing is that as a young kid, okay, born in Scranton, but then his family moved to Boston, and then, his family lived in affluence. They did. His father ran a business. His uncle owned the business, but the father ran the business, apparently very, very well paid. But at age 10, uh, Joe Biden's family went from a very well off family to one that was barely surviving. His father had been the executive of a manufacturing company that boomed during World War II and shortly thereafter, but then the company went out of business. And that forced the Biden family of six, where Joe Biden was the oldest. He had three siblings and his mom and dad. It forced that family to move into Scranton with Joe Biden's maternal grandparents for several years. I mean, we're not like talking, oh, there's a couple of weeks till we get on our feet. It was several years. Thereafter, his father struggled for several years to reestablish himself. Ultimately, he got apparently very good at selling used cars, and ultimately they were able to get back to middle class. But you've got to wonder how that going from way at the top down to the bottom, like doing that almost overnight, how that may have affected his view of the world, that, success can be fleeting. It's, that life can interrupt. Then there was the fact that while in college at the University of Delaware, Joe Biden had a summer job, and he was the only white lifeguard at a swimming pool in a predominantly black neighborhood in Wilmington, Delaware, something which President Joe later said changed his perspective on racial issues. Now remember, you've heard me say this before. I firmly believe the only pathway through how we marginalize people who are different, the only pathway to stop that is to spend more time with those people, quotation marks, and take risks and get to know, quote unquote, those people. And by becoming familiar with them, as apparently President Joe did as a, college-age lifeguard, it changed the way he viewed the world. It changed his perspective. And that's the key, changing your perspective. I can't say that enough. There's also the fact that Joe Biden knew what it meant to be made to feel other personally because of his stutter. A stutter that existed through much of his childhood and into his 20s. He's written a memoir, and he talked about being, made fun of by classmates and even by teachers. And to show you the tenacity, because we saw the tenacity up until Sunday, right? We saw the tenacity. I'm not going to give up. I'm not dropping out of this race. I'm not going to do that. We saw that tenacity. Okay. But that tenacity didn't just suddenly show up in the summer of 2024. That tenacity has always existed with Joe Biden. And so he overcame his stutter, and had I not ever known that he had suffered from, that's not the right phrase, that's not the right word, that he had a challenge around stuttering, I would never have known that. Okay. I mean, I didn't know that until somebody told me, until I read it. But the way that Joe Biden overcame his stuttering was to stand in front of a mirror for hours and hours and hours reciting poetry. He did. This guy, he got past the stutter mainly on his own through a whole lot of hard work. Now, it also turned out that President Joe was not a particularly great student. I mean, he graduated from college ranked 506th out of 688 classmates. And then in law school, he was number 76 out of a roster of 85 law students. Okay, but hold on. He also was the class president in high school, I think 2 years in a row. And he tried to be class president in law school, but lost by one vote. It's the only election he's ever lost. Okay. All right. But notwithstanding, Um, all of those, in the end, frankly, it doesn't matter what kind of grades you got. What really matters is who you are and how, in the end, tenacious that you may be. Um, but even then, with those grades, he was telling people that he planned to become a U.S. senator and then president while he was still in college and law school. Okay, and he did it. He did it. And of course, President Joe knows all too well about tragedy, with having lost his first wife and daughter in a car accident that severely injured both of his surviving sons, Bo and Hunter. That car accident happened in December 1972, barely a month after Joe Biden was first elected to the U.S. Senate. You know, but he was persistent. He hung in, you know, and I think that these and other things about Joe Biden's life shaped him into understanding what it meant to be an underdog and someone outside the mainstream or ruling class. And by all means, we have seen that from Joe Biden over and over again, how he's literally embraced people at his rallies, where he's hugged them, where he's given them supportive words. I'm remembering about him talking to a kid who had a stutter, and talking to the kid about, that he'd be willing to talk with him, like after, intermittently to offer him this kid's support. And I think all of that helps to explain his tenacity in believing that he could overcome the odds and critics by staying in the presidential race, despite his age of 81, and despite his abysmal debate performance in June, because Joe Biden obviously has encountered all kinds of setbacks, all kinds of roadblocks, and he's overcome them. So I think the die was cast. I don't think it was at all unusual or out of character. That would be the word, out of character, for him to say, I am going to hang in. And yet, I truly believe that it was his idealism, his belief in the power of a single person to make a difference in the world, that it was ultimately his idealism that got him to decide that it was in America's best interest that he forego his presidential bid. In fact, it was idealism at its very finest that we heard in President Joe's national address on Wednesday night. At the very start of the speech, this is what he said, quote, "In this sacred space, I'm surrounded by portraits of extraordinary American presidents. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington, who showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln, who implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt, who inspired us to reject fear. And then he said, I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president, but in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title." And then he went on to say, hold on a second, I got to find it here. Then he went on to say, quote, "And I know this, we are a great nation because we are a good people. When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country, is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish so much, the cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. In recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I needed to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation." unquote. Those are the words of an idealist who may be in our living memory right now, may be the greatest idealist among us. Thank you, President Joe, for putting our country ahead of you. Thank you for having the grace, the humility, the character to do what was right. And most of all, thank you for simply protecting me and others. Okay. All right. There's our featured idealist of the week. Quite the idealist, don't you think? All right. When we come back, we're going to do the big interview with Katie White, and you'll love hearing from Katie. And then after that, my very short C block. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug, one of the relatively few transgender radio hosts in the world, and the only one who has a show about idealism. If you like what you hear, visit my website at elliekrug.com. I'll be back in a second. Thanks.
We go.
I wanna hold the hand inside you.
And we're back. Ellie 2.0 Radio. I hope you liked that interview with Katie White. Yes, she's a friend. She is a dear friend. But boy, do I really respect that woman. I got to tell you, you're on the verge. I mean, she did not relate, but I know that. I mean, she'd suffered from heart issues for much of her life, and she's gotten a second chance. And boy, is she taking it. I'm just in awe of her. Okay, C block. I don't have much time to talk about my work, and that's okay because it's been a relatively short, week. I finally actually got a chance to go take a vacation that didn't involve going and seeing other people. I was up at Park Rapids at a lake house for several days. Sister came up. Some of my gay boyfriends came up, and it was just a delightful time. I got out on the kayak a couple of times, including once out on the lake in a field of water lilies, where all of the buds were up above the lilies, but they hadn't popped yet. It was just a field of a bunch of yellow bulbs. It was delightful. So, all I can just tell you is this. I'm working on the second book. It's a real book now. And the book is out to some beta readers. I've heard back from one beta reader. And the title of this book is Being Ellen, and I'm still working on the sequential title to it. But it's about me living as Ellie Krug for 15 years compared to living as a dude for 52 years. The first report back from my first beta reader is that she really liked it a lot and that it tells a good story. We'll see what the other beta readers have to say. And then, of course, it's going to go through a formal process with paid readers and editors and all that stuff. So, but with some luck, that book will be out this time next year, just so you know. So just stay tuned. Okay. The last thing I want to say is a reminder that from a month from now, okay, on Saturday, August 31st, will be the very first Pride celebration in Waconia, Minnesota, the very first countywide Pride event for Carver County in the history of the county. Get it on your calendar. We are anticipating many people coming. Several thousand people coming to the event. We will have like 60 sponsors and tables, including Katie White. Katie White Design will be there. So get that on your calendar. I'd love to see you. All right. Well, there we go. We're run out of time. A big thanks to my producer, Brett Johnson, who is absolutely the best in the business. And thanks to all of you, my listeners. If you like what you hear, share about this show, will you? Okay. I'm like really trying to build the audience up. But most importantly, between now and when you hear my voice next, will you do me this one favor? Okay. Well, first of all, will you be excited about who our new, looks like Democratic nominee will be for president and help out that candidate? But secondly, will you go and do something to make the world better between now and when you hear my voice next? Thanks for doing that. Ellie Krug, over and